Hello, family. Welcome to part 23 of How I Married Wrong. And we still continue with the part where I sent my daughter to China to study, and the reason why I sent it there, it was just because I just couldn't stand the pain. I just couldn't stand looking at her. And yeah, and she stayed there for 2 years, and then she came back. So before she went to China, she was one of the, in Durban, in one of the universities where she dropped out. So that was her first university dropout. So she dropped out because she was not copying, she was not doing well. So we sent her to China to go and study there. And then yeah, she couldn't even cope there as well. She stayed for 2 years, so I used to see her almost every other month because I used to go to China every other month. Remember, I used to travel. I had boutiques, so I'll be in China, I'll be in Turkey. So whenever I'm there every other month, I'll see her and then come back. But she couldn't make it there. She decided to come back, and then she came and stayed with us again. It was at the time where she developed what to call, she started like anxiety. She started having anxiety. Yeah, as she had anxiety, and as a result, she was admitted in a mental hospital. She was admitted in a mental hospital, and she was admitted for 3 months. It was during that time that we began counseling, and we started, we had a psychologist who was um, helping us, assisting us going through the process, interviewing us, interviewing me, interviewing her. And during the time, that was so helpful because, when you are in pain and you don't know how to deal with pain, and as a result, you act in a certain way because of the pain that you are feeling. So that's what was happening in me and in her, as as a way of preventing the pain. I was acting in a certain way. Like there was no, like, we couldn't have a conversation, like talk about what actually happened, because I was not ready to deal with the pain or even to face the reality of what really actually happened. So, but when she was admitted in hospital, that really helped a lot because we had interviews with the psychologist. So she will interview me, and she'll interview her, and then she'll have in what interviews where now it's both of us, and we being asked questions, and we talk about a lot of things. We'll ask how we felt and what we think and stuff like that. Well, that one is so intensive. So it took us for 3 months, like almost. I'll go there almost every week or twice a week. I cannot remember. So going for counseling, intensive counseling, and that was the beginning of our journey of healing. Because yes, we are Christians, we pray. Yes, we believe in God, that God heals, but also psychologists play a role, because there are things that we tend to neglect and we leave unattended, but they're supposed to be dealt with. Uncomfortable conversations that they need to be looked at, or the conversation that you need to have. But if you don't see a psychologist, you'll think you are healed, and yet you are not. So that was the beginning of the journey, where we started talking in details of what actually happened, and how she sees me and how I see her, and stuff like that. Because at the end of the day, as my daughter, she felt that I brought this man in their lives, and if I didn't bring this man in their lives, she wouldn't have been molested. So she had anger towards me. I also had issues with her as well, and why she didn't tell me. She was supposed to tell me stuff like that. So it's things that as victims you cannot avoid. So attending or seeing a psychologist help you to deal with those issues and how to unpack them and how to deal with them in details. So that really helped us a lot. So we went there, me and her, and yeah, so that was very important. So that was the beginning of the journey. But now, after we've done that, it took time. It was, yeah, it was the most painful thing, because remember, even when we went to open the case, went to the police station, and they said, because the molestation started when she was 12 years old, so it happened for Alabate about 3 or 4 years. Yes, that how long. It was not a once-off event. In fact, she was groomed now to be like a second wife. And yeah, so um so when it happened, she was 12 years old, and now when we went to open a case, she was 18 years old. So the police said there is no evidence, and guess what, the guy said, you don't have proof, show me proof. And he was friend with the police. So he was left, he was never arrested because we didn't have proof. And one thing I can tell you, that I believe and I trust God, that as I'm making these videos, many of his victims will come forward, because I believe that my daughters were not the only victims. They were not. Because what happened is that I started discovering other things. For instance, my helper at home, I used to have a lady who was, when she came to work for me, she was like 19 years old. And she worked for me, but she left, without saying goodbye. And I asked myself why, because she was a good girl. She was coming from a rural area. Why she left? So when this thing happened, I decided to call her and ask her if she never became a victim of this man. So I told her that I've just discovered that this man has been molesting my daughter, and now I want to ask her if she did anything to her. And guess what? At that time, she opened up. She said, Sisi, the reason why I left is because I was tired. Every morning when you leave for work, when you go to work, this man will be left with me and be sleeping with me. And I was tired. So can you imagine? So that's why I said this man was possessed. There is no human being who can behave this way. There is no way. You've got a wife. You've got 1,000 girlfriends. And you also, everything. He was literally sleeping with everything that he finds. Everything. Everybody. Everybody. There is so much that was happening at that time. So yeah, so when I asked her, she told me, she said, I didn't know how I was gonna tell you, how I was gonna open up to you. Because I remember after that I had another lady who was working for me, but she was much older, and she used to tell me that, this husband of yours is making a fool of out of you. And I couldn't understand, but I think she didn't have the boldness to tell me, because as a result she kept telling me that. And she told me that she brought some schoolgirls at some stage. Imagine. So at that time, that's when I was planning my exit and planning to leave. And yeah, guys, it was horrible. And then now, the main thing now was to tell my son, our son. We had to tell him, because remember, when this thing happened, he was still young. I had to tell him. And on my next visit, I'm going to share the response.